Now, in lesson 3.5, chapter 3, lesson 5, we've added, we've subtracted, we've added, we've subtracted, we've multiplied, and now we are dividing rational numbers. And just like before, the sign rules are still the same. If you divide a positive and a negative, you're going to get a negative. If you divide a negative and a positive, you get a negative. All right? When the signs are different, it's going to be negative. When the signs are the same, it's going to be positive. So that's, all of these different lessons are really driving home this idea of these sign rules with lots of different kinds of rational numbers. And remember, rational numbers are fractions, like 11, no, that doesn't make sense. Like 3/4, that's a rational number. 0.75, that's a rational number. 2, that's a rational number. So all we're trying to do is learn how to recognize these types of sign rules so that we don't get confused. So it really comes down to positive and using positive and negative numbers with all of these different kinds of rational numbers. All right? So what's 12 divided by 4? It's 3. And because it's a positive divided by a negative, the answer is -3. All right? What's 12 divided by 4? 4, 8, 12. It's 3. And because it's a negative divided by a positive, it's going to be a negative. Right? Now here, 12 divided by 4 is 3. And because it's in parentheses, the negative is going to turn the whole thing negative. Cool? Cool. All right. So, the rational numbers here are equivalent in this example. So then we go into quotients of rational numbers, where we take a fraction like this, and what are we trying to do? We're just trying to change it into a decimal. In order to do that, honestly, we're going to be using long division, and the thing that it's trying to get you to understand is that the quotient, after doing that long division, or using a calculator, is going to be negative, because a negative and a positive gets you a negative. Again, that's what we're trying to understand. Will be negative because the signs are different. That's what we're trying to understand here. So now when we get a complex fraction, all right? A complex fraction is a fraction like this, where the top number is a fraction and the bottom number can be a fraction as well. All right? So if we have 7/10 divided by -1.5, all right, what they're going to ask you to do is write the complex fraction as division. So just like 4/2 is the same as 4 divided by 2, which is 2, okay, 7/10 over -1/5 is going to be the same as 7/10 divided by -1/5. So then, when you have to divide fractions like this, this is where we have to remember the rule for dividing fractions, which we learned in 5th grade. It is a 5th grade expectation to divide, well, I guess 6th grade. Yeah, they might introduce it in 5th grade, but it's a standard in 6th grade, where when you divide a fraction by a fraction, you're going to be flipping the reciprocal so that you're multiplying, all right, the opposite numbers. You turn this around and you multiply, and you end up with 35/10, right? Which 5 goes into 35 7 times, 5 goes into 10 2 times, and you end up with -7/2. So complex fractions, you just got to remember 1 or 2 little things that we learned in the last 2 years and apply them in this more complicated way. So complex fraction. Makes sense why they call them that, yes? All right, and then we get into guided practice. and independent practice, so that we can not just practice getting the right answer or use calculator or find other tips and tricks, but actually understand how, by explaining to somebody when we're doing these, how we get our answers. Feel free to rewind and review my explanations, ask other classmates, ask tutors, ask your teacher if you get stuck on something. But remember, ultimately, it's not going to be you just doing the worksheet. It's going to be you explaining how to do these problems, and after you explain them and do them, can you, the very next day and the day after that, still go back and explain how you got those answers? That's how you know that you've learned this content.